Thank you so much, Eric. It's great to see all of you. I know a number of you, and I wish I could see your faces. I'm thrilled to be here, and I see that I win for having the biggest headphones of anybody on the call so far. It's my pleasure to introduce Denise Domergue. Domergue, should have gotten that before. She is the founder and director of Made Out of What, an organization that's new to me, and I'm excited to hear more about it. She has had a long career both as a conservator of contemporary art, where she had previously been director of Conservation of Paintings Limited and a fellow of the American Institute for Conservation. She's aligned her life with her lifelong interest in alternative approaches to creative pursuits. And in 1984, she authored Artist Designed Furniture, a book that was published by Abrams. She was also editor of Metropolitan Home Museum from 1989 to 94, and has done many research papers, written for catalogs, written essays, magazine articles. And since 2014, she's devoted her energies to researching and writing, editing, curating international exhibitions. And she also produced a short documentary. So I think we might see one of those. Is that true? Well, anyway, without further ado, I'd love to turn it over to Denise.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to see some of you who I've seen before, and it's wonderful to meet you, Suzanne. I'm honored to have been invited to give a presentation tonight to the Ruskin Art Club about my passion project, Made Out of What. I've had the pleasure of attending 2 hugely enjoyable and richly informative meetings here. And the last one was Ruskin's birthday celebration, when he was described as a passionate proto-environmentalist. That made me happy. I have a hunch that if he were alive today, he would be wholeheartedly aligned with our efforts to save beauty and diversity of nature that he loved so much. I must say that Ruskin was indeed fortunate to have enjoyed a life that predated all these crises we are grappling with right now. So I would like first to open with an introductory film that I made for a presentation for the first Disruptive Innovation Festival organized by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation in the UK in late 2014. Here we go.
This year, our world will generate over 2.6 trillion pounds of trash. At this rate, this figure will reach 8 trillion pounds per year by the year 2100. The convenient economy of take, make, waste turns out not to be so convenient. Trash is a global problem. We are running out of places to put it, depleting our natural resources, and drowning in toxic waste. But there is good news. Smarter design is emerging that embodies the restorative principles of the circular economy. Artists, designers, craftspeople, and others with keen antennae, ingenuity, and a drive to make practical beauty view trash as a new class of abundant raw material with which they design and create useful objects full of imagination, purpose, and humor. Global influences from traditional wisdom to cutting-edge technology are forging new alchemies, transforming trash into objects of desire and agents of change. Heath Nash combines typically South African knowledge of wire techniques with old plastic bottles to create beauty and sustainable incomes in the custom production of his pendant lamps. Rhode Island resident Boris Valley assembles the remains of American street signs, which graphically animate comfortable, stylish, and witty furniture pieces. Styrofoam cups so casually discarded take over 1,000 years to biodegrade, Paul Coxedge found inspiration in their thermoplastic property and their potential to become striking biomorphic spheres that will last lifetimes as works of art. The fun-loving, iconoclastic approach to design of Pavel Grunert is evident in this arrangement of the single-use water bottles that quenched his family's thirst into a place for sitting. He is convinced that he will reincarnate in the form of a chair. Innovator and architect Greg Lynn takes scavenged toys which he laser scans, digitizes, designs, and arrays like bricks, then slices along cutting paths with precision robotics, finally welding the parts together to create colorful table bases. Soft rubber scraps from a flip-flop factory in southern Brazil are repurposed by designer Karen Whitman-Wilsman. Made by social groups that provide work for the local community, the scraps are simply tied up as is into ottomans exploding with color. With an artist's eye, designer Stuart Haygarth combs the Kentish shores, collecting, categorizing, and sorting ordinary plastic debris, which he meticulously transforms into extraordinary and precious chandeliers. Listen to an object long enough, and it will tell you what it wants to be next. Reuse, reduce, recycle. It's common sense that can save the world. Trash is the failure of imagination. These artist-designers from all over the world are proactive thinkers offering highly individual prescriptions of beauty and utility. Their solutions are persuasive visual manifestos prompting us to imagine and create our own personal solutions to the urgent global problem of trash. Help us promote a shift in global thinking with our design stories from the circular economy.
So to backtrack just a bit, I want to tell you about what planted the seed in me a long time ago for what would eventually morph into Made Out of What. I've had a long professional career in the conservation of modern and contemporary art. It gave me direct exposure to the thinking of artists. It was part of my job to understand their intention with respect to their work. I can say that in this regard, I never dared to second guess them. I treated a lot of post-data and cutting-edge work that completely broke with the traditional methodologies, and I never knew what to expect. I was also privy to how some of the artists lived. The furniture they fabricated as works of art or for their own use also often defied the norms. They were making furniture their own way for whatever role they wanted that furniture to play for themselves. Suffice it to say, the Bauhaus dictum, form follows function, was pretty much completely reinterpreted. Here are some examples. Take John Chamberlain. For his couch, he assembled huge pieces of polyurethane foam, then carved out some seating areas and covered them with with fabric. That embodied his idea of comfort, a comfort that required that a couch enable rolling around on it like an 8-year-old. This concept turned out to have an appeal to others with similar idea of comfort and relaxation, since it led to a number of commissions in the late 70s and 80s. Robert Rauschenberg declared he hated furniture and he wanted as little of it as possible. He had been working with tires a lot in his art at the time, so he hung one up with an incandescent light bulb, which served the function he sought in his lamp to a T. He liked the shadow it cast. Marc de Souvreau rebelled against the symbolic imposition of behavioral control that furniture represented. He said, when you walk into a Louis XIV room, you behave. These stools invited the sitter to bounce on them, drag them around, no worries about upholstery. To de Souvreau, furniture was interactional sculpture. His own bed, after all, was a swing suspended from the ceiling. Richard Morrow from Brooklyn considered his furniture in terms of anti-symbols for art, in retaliation for the waste and corruption of industry. See these armchairs. On the left is a chair made of 500 paperbacks enclosed in cargo netting, and on the right, 67 pounds of assorted springs in an acrylic sheeting. These out-of-the-box approaches inspired me to put it in a book I titled Artist Designed Furniture, with images and interviews from about 170 contemporary artists. It was published in 1984 by Abrams Books. I kept an eye on design. Then around the mid-2000s, I began to notice that artists and designers were getting even more experimental with their materials, like this shopping cart chair by Stiletto Studios in Berlin. Then there were lamps of tin cans. There were chairs of pool noodles. There were chairs of tennis balls. There were pendant lamps of styrofoam cups or plastic washed up by the tides. A chandelier shimmering with crystal gel caps and hypodermic needles. It occurred to me that most important about this work was that it was offering solutions to an existential problem delivered in a sophisticated, witty vernacular that engaged the consumer. It had the sublime effect of destigmatizing the notion of trash. Plus, it appeared to be part of a fast-growing environmental activism. I said to myself, aha, another book. But I felt another book didn't cut it. The only way to drag quickly and advocate efficiently was enough to keep up with these developments was social media. So in late 2016, Made Out of What was born as a nonprofit. In the spring of 2017, Made Out of What was invited by Design Pavilion to exhibit smack in the middle of Times Square for Design Week in New York City. We set up our own little exhibition made out of recycled pallets. It featured numerous artists, designers, and a couple of videos. Thousands of people streamed through each day to Made Out of What. The audiences seemed very, very happy. And the maxim of the goal was the maxim of Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message, and the medium was well delivered message. So anyway, hang on. I'm having technical trouble.
Just find Safari.
Hmm?
Find Safari on the dock.
No, I see the dock. It's okay.
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 Slide 20.
Okay, thank you. So Gonzalo Mabunda was born in 1975 in Maputo, Mozambique. He performs transformative poetic alchemy on instruments of war and death. The work is made out of unearthed AK-47s and other deactivated arms buried during the long civil war ravaging Mozambique from 1977 to 1992. Gonzalo Mabunda expurgated their connotation of suffering and horror, transforming them into thrones, symbols of peace and unity. Today, he is still working this alchemy, turning violence into music by making saxophones out of bazookas. Claire Graham was born in a small town in Ontario, Canada. He studied at Long Beach State, and for the next 25 years, he worked for Disney, rising to directorship of Disney's global network of theme parks. Graham admitted he's a born recycler, but that hardly begins to give him the credit is due, he's due. Take a look at this complex installation of screen and lounge chair made up of cut up soda cans, carefully assembled into incredibly beautiful and intricate patterns. Thank God Highland Park studio, his studio is huge, it's Highland Park studio. It's a former Safeway that affords him space to store his collection of curiosities, as well as room to work on furniture designs and large scale assemblages, all made out of detritus. Tin can lids, buttons, soda cans, pull tabs, yardsticks, puzzle pieces. He says he's used approximately 3.5 billion buttons and over 15.5 million pop tops and counting. To describe his work as, he describes his work as awakening people to the potential of garbage. Ahmed Watara, born in 1971 in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, Watara started out as an accountant, then became a painter and studied industrial design in Paris. Works primarily with abandoned oil barrels that are plentiful in Burkina Faso. With his wildly original mixed media furniture pieces, he's defining a new African modern style. He has had exhibitions in cities worldwide like Paris, Miami, New York, Bilbao. His work is regularly sold in Spain, Switzerland, France, as well as Burkina Faso and Ghana. Undeterred by the lack of high-tech tools, he welds his designs himself and even makes his own hinges. In his words, his goal is to provide a key point in a continent which suffered from imports and all kinds of imitation furniture of poor quality and which does not reflect their culture. Watara feels he is making an impact with his stylish, original, well-made designs. His painter side clearly relishes the seductive textures and colors of the oil barrels assembled into this new very African sensibility. Aurora Robeson is a prolific artist and activist known predominantly for her meditative work, intercepting the plastic waste stream. Robeson has exhibited widely in museums, galleries, and alternative spaces since 2002, and she is a recipient of numerous prestigious awards. This large interactive installation is a formal meditation on a recurring nightmare she had as a child, in which she hybridizes and transforms via forms found in nature. She says, I think of plastic as disposable when it is precisely the opposite. I extract it from its problematic, destructive fate and utilize its potential to become a source for enjoyable reflection. It is a process of rescuing, decontextualizing, and romancing. Since 2014, Robeson has been developing and assisting with implementation of a course called Sculpture and Intercepting the Waste Stream, designed to foster creative stewardship at colleges, universities, and high schools around the world. Rufai Zakari was born in 1990 in Ghana. His art practice involves collecting single-use plastic bags, food packaging, and plastic bottles, which are commonly tossed on the streets in Ghana. Mimicking the traditional look of portraiture, Zakari's figurative collages are female subjects that he ironically reimagines as living lives of luxury. In this way, he captures their inner nobility despite their economic circumstances, and he carefully chooses colors that portray their essences as he understands them. Zakari is a feminist in that he also tries to encourage women to be artists in a country where there are very few. They work in his studio, sorting, cleaning, drying, cutting, and flattening the materials, and these women are often the subjects of his portraits. He believes that the sustainability of the African home lies with women, and he credits his mother with all his achievements. He endows women with a sassy persona, along with a careless and even transgressive defiance. Besides the feminism that influences his work, the discussion about it, however, revolves mostly around his technical wizardry with materials and the sophistication with which he transforms them into art. Claudia Borgna was born in Germany, grew up in Italy, and studied in Genoa, London, and LA. She now lives in Imperia, Italy. She has been using trash as a material since her student days in London, but ultimately chose single-use plastic bags as a medium, which perfectly represent our consumer lifestyle, which she feels is the primary reason for our environmental crisis. This image is titled Melting Growth, Growing Melt, and is a floating construction made out of 8,000 plastic bags that was installed in a park in Connecticut in 2007. My working method is to change the shape of the bags just enough to suggest a new form, but leaving the bags somehow recognizable. She intends the construction to be precarious and art in motion, not static, but animated, living off the power of natural elements. Central to her work is economic feasibility. So she recycles the same bags over and over. Throughout the years, I've collected thousands of plastic bags. I consider them my loyal traveling companions. At the end of each project, she packs the bags up and ships them to the next location. It is very much a performative endeavor. Moffett Takadiwa lives and works in Harare, Zimbabwe, in the neighborhood of Mbare, the biggest marketplace in the country for the recycling microeconomy. As a result of the economic crisis in his country, Takadiwa, like other artists, has been forced to explore unexpected media. As he forages for materials, Takadiwa said he could find nothing original in Africa. Every object seemed to be imported from Asia, and all were everyday consumer products. Spray cans, toothpaste, bottles tops, computer keyboards. For me, each of these found objects speaks of my community. However, he sees his most important impact mentoring a whole generation of young artists and helping to found a gallery in Zimbabwe. As I now work with a number of people who collect garbage for recycling and repurposing, I think we also play a role in protecting the environment, he says. His work speaks potently of the cultural domination illustrated by the consumption of foreign products across Africa. His choice of materials communicates his concern with issues around consumerism, inequality, post-colonialism, and the environment, of course. He weaves together these small everyday objects to make impressive organic banners evocative of jewel-encrusted excess or a kind of ambiguous minimalist ritual. Despite his growing international success, he has absolutely no desire to live anywhere else. Artur Bordalo, born in Lisbon, Portugal in 1987, uses the artist name Bordalo too, which he chose as a tribute to his grandfather, the painter Real Bordalo. He went to art school to become a painter like his grandfather, but got sidetracked, learning sculpture and ceramic and experimenting with materials of all kinds. The public space would become the chosen stage for his explorations of color and scale. His theme currently centers around the effect of consumerism on the animal world. Pictured here is a wood turtle installed in New Brunswick, Canada. This compelling creature was made from trash picked up along the riverbanks, the very riverbanks, and the very trash that this local endangered turtle often mistakes for food. This is an Iberian lynx, an animal endangered in the artist's home country of Portugal. He says, it's not about turning the trash into something beautiful. It's about creating images of victims with what kills them. This oversized orangutan and baby was created in Sacramento for the annual Wide Open Wall Street Art Festival. Baby Elephant was created for his first solo show in the US using primarily materials sourced from recycling centers in the East Bay, it's in San Francisco. His heart-rending depiction of this helpless baby elephant collapsed into an uncomfortable kneeling position that tears at your heartstrings. Also shown in San Francisco was this giant California harbor seal, which adorned the side of a building. The subject was chosen after a visit to the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito to learn more about the local animals. As you may have guessed, Bordalo has constructed his huge street art all over the world, from Europe to South America and the US. This work is the vehicle for his universal manifesto. Antoinetta Tica was born in 1970 in Bucharest, Romania. She earned an MA in fashion and costume design and a doctorate in visual arts. She's a lecturer and teacher. Her work is driven by her very personal reaction to the plastic epidemic and particularly its effect on aquatic life. She made this dress out of over 250 discarded PET bottles, polyethylene terephthalate, which does not biodegrade for centuries. Here, she is opening the discussion about our everyday consumer habits, as well as those surrounding fashion and textiles. Not only is PET an ubiquitous single-use material for bottles, it's also found in our acrylic, spandex, nylon, and acetate garments. She has cut, melted, and reshaped the plastic into this dainty and dangerous wearable piece called Are You Thirsty? This dress won the International Artist of the Year Award in 2018 in the Wearable Art Mandara competition in Australia. This wearable sculpture was made in response to the bleaching of the thermally sensitive coral reefs as a result of global warming. She was especially alarmed by the state of the Great Barrier Reef, where plastic waste in particular intensifies the situation. There was a bleach event in 2020 that affected over 50% of the beautiful coral reefs. To call attention to this, Antoinetta created this garment out of usually discarded materials, plastic, wires, beads, CDs, and secondhand clothes made from synthetic materials. Over a coral-colored undergarment, she created a variety of all-white, clingy textures within the work to imitate algae, jellyfish, and other impacted organisms. Marina Debris, an American beach-loving artist, attended the Rhode Island School of Design. She has lived in New York, London, and Los Angeles, and currently resides in Sydney, Australia. Marina Debris adopted her present nom de guerre when in 2009, she had an epiphany walking on a trash-strewn sandy shore and became a fierce environmental activist focused on the problem of beach trash. The enormity of the problem hit her. The stuff does not disappear when we throw it away. There is no away, as she puts it. It will continue to fill up our landfill and waterways forever. Her tactic to shift the collective consciousness was to transfer her collected inventory of beach trash to trashion that spoke the language of haute couture while slightly captivating fashionistas with an underlying message. She currently has a show at the Australian National Maritime Museum in Sydney, where she includes a subversive part of it is called Inconvenience, the Inconvenience Store, where she's repackaged convenience items picked up on the local beaches. Ricky Sandu, born in 1977, is a visionary fountain of ideas. Sandu's course was actually set when, as an exchange student at UCLA, he participated in a program in biomimicry and became an acclaimed international solution finder guided by deep observation of natural systems. In 2014, he founded his own firm called SMALL, or 6 Miles Across London Limited, a design and architecture consultancy which also brings together a community of young creatives with a diversity of expertise. Each project starts with fresh thinking from his close-knit team. Architects usually only focus on their site, he says. I wanted to go beyond the site boundary. The project closest to his heart, however, and a far cry from the futuristic innovations he is famous for, are his bottle houses, shown in 2019 at the London Festival of Architecture. There are 100 billion plastic bottles produced in the world every year by just one fizzy drink company. They are hard to recycle, and it takes a lot of energy. Often they end up in landfills and the ocean. Plastic pollution was the #1 problem to solve. His idea was to adapt plastic bottles as bricks, tied to rods of fast-growing bamboo with plastic caps providing the posts for the tension and the labels used to affix the rungs. And the bottles were filled with hay or other lightweight filler to achieve insulation. Then he integrated miniature solar devices and panels for free energy. Bottle houses can be scaled easily. They are waterproof, provide shelter, warmth. They can even float. It took 6,000 plastic bottles to build a 12 by 12 foot house. The main intended use is for emerging shelters, and they are also practical solutions in zones with lots of waste. Nzambe Mati, a 29-year-old Kenyan entrepreneur, is the founder and CEO of Genje Makers, a Nairobi-based film turning waste plastic into alternative low-cost building materials, such as building blocks, tiles, and manhole covers. Mati set up her factory after she ran out of patience waiting for the government to solve the problem of plastic pollution. I was tired of being in the sidelines, she said. Mati, a material engineer, even designed her own machines. She said her factory has recycled 20 tons of waste plastic since its founding in 2017. Her social enterprise currently employs 112 people, including garbage collectors, women, and youth groups involved in different stages of the supply production process. That waste they cannot process or recycle anymore, that is what we get. The plastic waste is mixed with sand, heated, and then compressed into bricks, which are sold at varying prices depending on the thickness and color. Her factory produces 1,500 bricks each day. Our product is almost 5 to 7 times stronger than concrete, she proudly asserts. The plans to add another bigger production line that could triple capacity and is on the line, and she hopes to break even with it at the end of this year. Born in 1975 in Gwangju, South Korea, Jai Rimley studied in the US at Wellesley and MIT and is a TED Fellow. She calls herself an artist, but she is also an entrepreneur. Her work will take some adjusting as it proposes a radical departure from our death denial culture. We spend thousands of dollars in the delusion that our chemically preserved bodies encased in the indestructible coffins will ensure our corporeal survival in perpetuity. In reality, even cremation means doubling down on the toxicity that these practices release into the soil and air. For this, Jai Rimley has worked out a brilliant solution. She has focused her energies on developing a project that transforms this toxic decay into a regenerative process that she calls the Infinity Burial Project. It uses mushrooms. She worked out a selective breeding process and found that our edible mushrooms were the best at cleaning environmental toxins in soil. Her new hybrid infinity mushroom will decompose bodies, clean the toxins, and deliver nutrients directly to soil and plant roots. For this, she designed her ninja pajamas, a jumpsuit which is covered with crocheted netting embedded with mushroom spores. The dendritic pattern mimics the growing of mushroom mycelia. To this, she added her decompiculture kit, a cocktail of capsules that contain infinity mushroom spores and other elements that speed decomposition and toxic remediation. I personally find it handsome, and I'm considering it for myself. Instead of fast fashion, she brings us hip last fashion. I like the idea of becoming a tree that could be home to bees and a new form, and be a new form of incarnation. This year, the Bahamian ocean pollution researcher Crystal Ambrose, AKA Crystal Ocean, was one of the 2020 winners of the prestigious Goldman Environmental Prize. Her fervor as an activist began when, as a student, she went on a sailing exhibition through the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Horrified, she decided then and there to spark a plastic pollution revolution. In 2014, at just 22 years of age, she founded the multifaceted Bahamas Plastic Movement, which offers education and citizen science along with its work on policy. Kristen would need every bit of that harnessed, Kristen would need every bit of harnessed energy to manage the challenge of raising awareness in her own working class community, as well as among the minority white elite. As a dive master from an early age, she is in her element underwater. Diving is where I'm reminded that I'm powerful. When I'm underwater, I can harness the energy of the sea. This connection is what fuels me to protect it from plastic pollution. Her Bahamas Plastic Movement's research team established a citizen science program, which has welcomed volunteers by the hundreds who have joined in the study and to study and quantify the many aspects of the ocean's plastic detritus. Crystal also organized a junior plastic warrior environmental education program for various age groups from small children to teenagers. In early 2018, banking on the power of youth to turn the tide, Crystal rallied a band of young recruits to accompany her to Nassau, where they banged noisily and chanted demands for the environmental minister to hear, and for him to ban single-use plastics. Her strategy worked. And that year, she was invited to help draft the law for the government of the Bahamas. At just 29, she has achieved her essential victory for the revolution she sparked. A total ban on single-use plastic bags, plastic cutlery, straws, and styrofoam cups and containers went into effect in January of 2020 nationwide. Persistence proved to be the winning approach for 27-year-old Carvey Erin Maig, who took home the inaugural sustainability prize of the 2020 Jamaican, the James Dyson Award, sorry. His invention, called Aureus, is a colorful material that absorbs and converts ultraviolet light into electricity, which can be applied to architectural surfaces. And through what means, you might ask? Through the power of rotten vegetables, of course. His product solves a dual problem facing his local community. Massive amounts of crop waste caused by climate change is one of them. With Aureus, we upcycle the crops of the farmers who are struck by natural disasters such as typhoons, he explains. By doing this, we can both be future-looking and solve the problem that we are currently experiencing. This process uses the same principle behind the Northern Lights, where luminescent particles absorb photons and remit them as visible light. Maig was able to identify certain fruits and vegetables that possess these same luminescent particles and suspended them into a resin substrate that became his miracle material. The material is fashioned into panels that are attached to windows and walls. When the particles absorb and transform the UV rays, the energy captured by special cells attached along the edges of each panel converts it into electricity. All a bit over my head, but I must say I'm in awe of his way out of the box thinking. Maig foresees his invention transforming building into vertical farms, radically changing our conceptions of how and where we source renewable energy. Winning this landmark, excuse me, 1 second. He won a landmark prize. He only seems to encourage this is winning a landmark prize only seems to encourage the inventor to push his ideas further. He has ideas to harvest ultraviolet light with threads of garments, plates for use on electric cars, boats, and planes, all with the purpose of bringing solar energy capture to individual people. It is all over my head. I cannot wait to see where Maig takes his ideas next. Finally, there's Greta Tunberg. I feel that the case could be made that Greta Tunberg is the reincarnation of John Ruskin. Gabriel passed an article to me that has convinced me. Like Ruskin, she does not mince her words to the powerful powers that be. At the age of 17, she famously told the world leaders at the 2019 UN Climate Action Summit in New York, to their face, that they should be ashamed of themselves for stealing the dreams of her entire generation. She told them, "How dare you?" I think you have all heard it. Ruskin saw the greed and exploitation by the wealthy at the expense of the workers, and the effects of mass production on the minds of the end users. Without emotional investment or quality, the message is that the fabricated stuff doesn't matter, and really neither do the people that make it, just like our industrial age. Anyway, Greta Tunberg is a fearless, her fearless attacks on the fossil fuel overlords has galvanized youth and awakened the rest of us. Made Out of What loves these young, undaunted thinkers and doers who are clearly made out of what it takes. That's it for now. I mean, we can. So that's sort of the trajectory of Made Out of What, from novelty to symbolic messenger, and now to imperative. And so it's sort of ramping up to actually making things out of unusual, really thinking of making utility out of what is killing us, and at the same time remedying our dire existential situation. So anyway, any questions, anyone?
Well, thank you so much, Denise. I'm really curious. That's quite a catalog of found object artists, and where did you go on my screen? And people using trash as products, as you mentioned, from very small scale luxury items to to larger scale industrial production. I'm really curious, could you just reiterate for us the mission statement for It's Made Out of What, the organization?
Our mission statement is to promote a world of zero waste through art, design, innovation, and celebrating it as much as we can through videos, exhibitions, our Instagram, and our quarterly magazine, which we instituted this year. So it's really about increasingly all these sort of little atomized examples need to come together, so we normalize this sort of experimentation and effort. And what I love about it is that it's sort of under the political radar. All these people are doing these things. They do what needs to be done. In their communities, they don't hesitate. It's really, I'm really heartened by the youth of many of these ingenious people. They just do it. They just see a need in their community. And they implement what's needed to serve their fellow citizens and brothers and sisters and help each other. And I love this. I love the whole ethos that's behind this. And it's sort of, it's sort of made much more democratic now. It's really reaching, I mean, as you can see, from the middle of nowhere to urban centers, it's happening. It's happening. And so I just want to keep it percolating is in every way I can, and I'm open to suggestions.
How often do you, as far as your role as an art historian and your role as an activist, how does your role of activist promote this kind of thinking?
Well, COVID kind of put a damper on a lot of the plans for last year. We were talking about doing an exhibition at Spark, for example. But the year before last, I did a symposium brought together artists from Germany, Charles Moore, the discoverer of the Pacific garbage patch, and people from Plastic Pollution Coalition and the Five Gyres. So there are forums for discussion. I've put on in exhibitions where people can see and discuss this sort of, the concept of viewing trash as a potential raw material for the 21st century.
Do you have faith that this approach can make a dent in, there's so much trash, there's just so much. I think this is one way in. How much of the movement is about the other way, trying to get people to produce less? Is that part of?
There's that movement. There's the movement of, people refusing, the fast food, plastic forks, and that's sort of caught on. We're recycling more, but recycling needs to be examined too. What worries me is that this pandemic has really, rendered, the whole, the plastic wrapping that we see as a result of this pandemic, with all the food deliveries and everything else, is really scary, and nobody's talking about that necessarily.
What's your thought? What's your thought about? You had mentioned. You just said recycling needs to be looked at more. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think that we're learning that what we thought was being recycled was really not necessarily being recycled, and we were also sending things to China until a couple of years ago, and now they're refusing it. So we're stuck with our own garbage. And so there are certain recycling centers that really do the job they say they're going to do, and there are others that don't. It's really hard. Especially in urban centers, it's, I think, easier to establish a recycling facility than it is in rural areas, but. So I think it's often the case in rural areas that people are more inventive with the garbage. They actually they fill their walls with it to insulate. There's just all kinds of applications that they just instinctively adapt.
Yeah. Have you seen? I was really intrigued by the architectural projects that you presented, and I wondered if you had seen any of these projects realized in real life in your travels.
No, I haven't traveled. I haven't traveled for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
A lot of what I showed you tonight is last year.
Yeah.
All prizes from last year. It's, I wanted to show you sort of some of the latest things, but no, my dream, one of my goals is to do a film on the various recyclers and upcyclers and inventors in the continent of Africa. They're these really ingenious, like Ahmed Watara, for example, but they really make beauty, and it's been their raw material for decades. So
I remember a show at the Fowler once where they really showcased a lot of the way things were being recycled in Africa, and this was 20 years ago, and I remember being quite impressed by the tradition.
Baskets of telephone wires using their traditional weaving methods.
Well, also in the United States, I think there's a very long history of people making do with what they have, and that both in terms of artists, working usually with found objects who couldn't afford art supplies, but also I think a lot of the quote unquote outsider art comes out of people using what they have to manufacture things, both for function and beauty. That's been a long part of the American history as well, but not necessarily always considered art by the art world. Yeah.
Chacun a son goût.
Right.
Gabriel, I have a question. Does your organization, in addition to giving a wonderful visible platform for all these varied artists across the globe, do they also fund the artists in any way, or the companies, or is this purely an informational site, so to speak?
Denise?
Oh, was that for me? I thought it was for.
Yeah.
No.
for,
Yeah, that's for you. I was asking about the organizations.
made out of what? Or the Ruskin Art Club.
No. I'm with the Ruskin Art Club. I'm talking about your organization. Do you give grants to artists, or is it purely a platform for
We need grants. The best we can do for artists is showcase them, exhibit them, promote them. That's
that's not a small thing. That's, it's incredible to have all of these artists in one site as well. Really marvelous.
the tip of the iceberg. I mean,
Only-
it's really exciting. Sorry?
Are you a website or only on Instagram?
We have a website made out of wood.
Okay,
And on that, you can see everything.
great.
You can see our videos. You can see our magazine, our quarterly magazine.
Tell us a little bit more, Denise, about your documentary.
Well, they are. I had a partner, Kayla Newhouse, who went. She's also a ceramicist, and she went to Paris to be closer to where she was going to have an exhibition, and then the pandemic came. But she was the one that would travel around and and film artists all over the world. And so she was responsible for these short documentaries. In fact, one of them about Moroccan women weaving all kinds of things out of the plastic bags that floated around their valley, was accepted at the Wild and Scenic Film Festival last year. So, and then it's supposed to be and it was in another film festival too. But so it takes someone actually being able. We were going to do one on Aurora Robeson this year actually, but that we couldn't do because at least she was, But so we're sort of stymied right now in that department.
Well, I want to open it up, but I want to ask you one more question. Hopefully the end of the pandemic is somewhere in sight. What's the first thing you want to do when it's over?
I'd love to leave town. I don't know where I'd go. I mean, I'd love to go to Europe. I haven't been there for a while. I miss it. But just see my friends. I'd love to go to New York and see my friends in New York. I don't know. Love to have dinner with people in a civilized manner.
Very good. Well, it would be really interesting to hear. You guys are so quiet. What questions do we have from the audience? Melba.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Don't forget to unmute.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Melba.
Hi, Denise. It was really wonderful. I just enjoyed it so much. It's really impressive. And, these are just the kind of banal questions, but I'm so curious. How do you find these artists, and do many of them find you? Do they come to you, Or are you just out there via your internet now, I know, but looking for them? And also if you're working alone, or do you have a kind of board?
I have an assistant who is indispensable. I have two, a young graduate from Smith and my assistant Matt. And they're indispensable. So we're on a shoestring. We're a shoestring. But the way we find things is, as we always have, people send me things that they see, looking for things. People contact us. Those are kind of the three ways. Or that's how it happens.
So your website is gotten out there. You must be quite known in the world of recycled art, right?
I hope so.
Are there probably not many people doing what you're doing?
I haven't seen anything quite like what we're doing, to tell you the truth, which makes me happy.
Well, congratulations.
I have to plug my organization for a minute. I mean, we've shown a number of your artists and actually have an upcoming show with Takadiwa. So
you do.
So there's a lot of synergy there. It should come out later the end of this year. So I'm really excited. Yeah. So I'm curious too. I kind of feel like I'd love to introduce you. There are some artists here who are also kind of aligned with you. I see, Ruth, you're silent here, but many of you know Ruth, and her entire aesthetic is about mending and reusing clothing. Do you want to say anything, Ruth?
She was a what?
She made a vow to buy no new clothing and to continue to mend everything that she wears over time.
That's great. That's really great.
Yeah, she's not talking.
Creative vendor.
Yeah.
Refashion.
Are there other questions or other artists who are very aligned with this work who want to share what they're up to?
I have a question for Denise. Denise, where does El Anatsui stand in here? Because it seems like he's kind of a pioneer.
Yeah, he is a pioneer, and he's really important, and he's really he's an inspiration to his own country and everyone else. I mean, his stuff is astounding. Yeah, I didn't put him in there because I thought everybody would know who he was, and I was going to mention when I was showing Takadiwa that they're weaving, that idea of weaving this detritus is akin, But no, I love him. I love him. I saw this exhibition at the Armory at the Venice Biennale, where he had every room, these giant hangings that were so mind-bogglingly beautiful.
Yeah. He's, what year did he start doing that? Do you know?
When did he?
Yeah.
It's a long time ago, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the work is so astounding. He's sort of a father figure in your story. I think you should put him in.
I tried to keep it more the latest stuff, just to sort of emphasize the youth aspect of these people and their commitment at an early age, and their drive and their perseverance. That sort of inspired me. I wanted to share that with you. But there's a lot of inspiring people, of all ages.
Denise, I'm here now. Can you hear me? Hi.
Hey, there she is.
Hi. This is Ruth Souza.
Hi.
And I accidentally left by mistake instead of unmuting. But I wanted to say that I met you briefly at Art Division and heard about what you're doing.
Oh.
And I also am very, as the host said, I'm very involved in mending. And I have a site called Mending as Metaphor. And most of my artwork is based around using found and recycled materials and also a practice of my personal clothing, as was mentioned. So yes, I'm sorry I had to come in late and I missed some of it, but I so appreciate what you do and that the Ruskin Club had you. Wonderful.
Well, it sounds like you're part of what needs to be happening right now, you know?
Well, I'll make a plug for Textile Arts LA because they're doing a lot. And one of their big driving sort of premises is mending and reuse. And I'm going to be doing a studio walkthrough on my mending projects that I've been doing during the pandemic. So if people are interested in understanding more about transforming things and zero waste clothing and art making, I'm going to do a half an hour studio walkthrough virtually on March 12th through Textile Arts LA.
Okay.
So I would love anyone to join, and see what's going on, because Textile Arts Los Angeles is focusing a lot on recycled textiles. So anyway, that's my little plug.
I want to say too, I really
LA.
appreciate that you really help people. You really teach people how to follow your practice. That a big part of what you do is also activism, in that you enable people to kind of follow in your footsteps in their own way, to their own capacity, which is really.
I really enjoy is seeing that transformation happen and not wasting anything that's made, that takes precious resources, and transforming that. And through that, sort of seeing how one thing becomes another, I think is a really, it's personally transformative also, because you realize how much we have and how little we use our imaginations and just run out to buy things instead. And I've been amazed by just the amount of things I've been able to not purchase during the pandemic and still mostly make all the art that I've wanted to make, during this time, by just finding things in my studio and in my home, which are connected. So
I love that exercise. Ruth, you might like our second quarterly magazine, which is all about fashion, and combining old things together and sort of new ideas about that. You might like it. You can find it online.
Well, there's such a big movement. Oh, good. And that's put out by your Made Out of What?
You go to the website, Made Out of What, it'll say, magazine, film, blah, 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 blah,
Okay, I will definitely check that out. And if anyone's interested, there's a book that came out this year by a really wonderful person who's very involved in the whole slow fashion mending world. And it's called Mend, M-E-N-D, and it's by Kate Sakoulis. And I feel very honored because I was one of the 8 menders that she profiled in the book. And I just love what she's doing. And she also has a very she's English and has kind of a wonderful cheeky attitude about things, and kind of very Ruskin-esque in a certain way in her ability to call things out as they are, and not hold back and speak up for the changes she wants to see. And so I really recommend the book for people who are just beginning to, dip their toes in the mending world. It's a really fun one.
That's great. I don't know if you could put that in the chat for everyone or not. I'm not
sure. Sure. Let me see if I can do that.
Yeah.
Yep. I will do that right now.
Okay.
Well, thank you for this wonderful program. Again, appreciate it.
See you, Ruth.
Okay, is there a way to send it to everybody? I'm trying to see. I think it's just, there is? Okay, let me see.
I can help out.
I just see the 4 names.
Oh, you're right.
Okay,
right.
I can
I'll
do
just-
it right now.
Okay, I will put that in Gabriel's, and then hopefully it will get to everyone.
Yes, I just sent it to
Fantastic,
everyone.
thank you. Thank you. Maybe, Katrina, maybe you could also put in the website for it's made out of what also,
Of
so
course,
that
of
people
course.
could see the magazine
That
and
would
the
be great. That
videos.
would be great.
Sure, of course.
Really good.
I say the invitation contains links to made out of what. You click anywhere on the invitation body text and you come up with made out of what. The Ruskin logo on the top is Ruskin, and it works very well.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, great, two. All right, Margaret.
Yes, hi, Denise. I just love the whole, thrust of what you're doing, and it's important. It seems small, but it could be so big, and I see that you recognize that. What about any kind of, is it premature or possible to explore any kind of partnerships with some of the larger environmental organizations, or educational organizations that are looking for sort of curriculum ideas, since recycling and environmental education has become, I think, an important theme in elementary, really through probably K through 12 education. So my question really is kind of expanding, the tent, or partnering.
I'm interested in possibly everything.
Mhm.
Everything is possible. I mean, of course. I've done things, like with Deanna Cohen at Plastic Pollution Coalition, and Five Gyres was involved in one of my exhibitions. So I mean, in that sense, but I know what you're talking about, like bigger sort of programs, and right now, it's me.
Yeah, no, I understand it's ambitious and not,
Wonderful.
it's easier said than done.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I mean, out there, I just love it. Yeah, I would love it.
It's interesting because, Denise, I think you might find, actually, if one were to dip one's toe into the sort of educational arena, that there's lots going on, especially in primary education. I'm not sure, but children bringing in all sorts of things into the classroom, and tinkering, and there's a big emphasis now on sort of invention and using materials that already exist. I think it's a very good time for this.
Do you know about the Rediscover Center?
I don't know.
That's exactly what it is. It's a program for children to learn to learn to use power tools and make things out of whatever, junk.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's exactly what that is. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, the Melba family again.
That was fabulous, Denise. I really saw a lot of things I'd never seen before. I just wanted to know, do you know who Naomi Klein is?
Of course.
Do you know about the project called The Leap?
The
Leap, L-E-A-P.
L-E-A-P.
It's a coalition of a lot of different groups that are working towards healing, and I think that it would be the kind of thing that might really interest them and give you a kind of a broader platform. So yeah, I would really check it out. They, because there's, they have like Amazon Watch and a lot of different groups that are in a coalition working towards staving off this existential threat. So check it out.
She's a hero. So, if I could find a way to collaborate or just, it would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. The hot tip.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
I also thought, it's very interesting. There really should be a cabinet member for trash. I'm wondering, and there should be a movement. Is there any movement? This is grassroots. Is there any movement, any way of getting into to the people that are on the top of this insane pyramid, and
the fossil fuel industry and their plastic and their
all of that. This is what we have to do to. It takes a movement from below and up, but it has these people. The people that actually have some kind of power have to be, and maybe are a little more willing to open themselves to something different. And I was just wondering if there's any movement in that you're seeing towards the political or corporate realities that are in fact enforcing this waste upon us.
enforcing the waste?
Well, yeah, sure.
I mean, like
if plastic was outlawed.
Yeah, fat chance. I would love that. I would love that so much. But it's the fossil fuel. They're making money hand over fist right now.
I know.
And they don't let these innovations get any steam. They just make sure that nobody hears about it, aside from, little interested groups and parties,
Right.
It's very hard, except that's why I really like this sort of, little particle level of activism, where all of a sudden you begin to form a network. And then there's maybe some possibility of power because people will see that there's people are preferring to do things a different way. We have to get people to prefer to do a different way and give them the tools, or work toward the mechanisms that will enable a change in the way we in this industrialized society operate.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It's fabulous negative entropy that what these projects are manifesting.
Louise, you had a question as well.
Yes, actually. Hi, Denise. It's not a question. I just had Katrina put something in the chat, and it related to that other book, Mend, that was talked about. There's an amazing designer who has been living in England for a long time. And as probably many of you know, Europe is a little bit ahead of the curve as far as sustainability and recycling and things like that. And she has just come out with a new book. Her name is Ursula de Castro. And I went to a sustainable fashion, I don't know what it was, a symposium or something, a few years ago when I was in England. And her book is called Loved Clothes Last, and she has got lots of wonderful ideas and things that she promotes, including, holding on to your quality cashmere sweaters and just simply darning or adding appliques onto the hole or just being proud of your holes. So anyway, she's a very inspiring. So I just wanted to recommend that to all the people here who are interested in what we put on our bodies. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Well, I want to turn it over to Gabe, but I had one more question, and this is actually for Elena. I saw in the chat that you're teaching an eco poetry class, and I just thought, what is eco poetry?
Well, similarly, a lot of people in the literary world are very concerned and interested in this topic. And so eco poetry has become very popular in the last few years, not only with my press, Omnidom, but many other presses. And there's a group in England actually called that have something called the Ginkgo Prize for the best eco poetry that year. But when I taught a class for them, and I'm going to be teaching another, they asked for other resources. In other words, resources that tied to art, the other arts, and any other information that they, might be able to check out. So I was just saying to Katrina that what we'll do maybe on the Ruskin website is we'll put up some of these supporting materials, these links to other types of art institutions and educational institutions that are supporting, overall supporting this kind of effort. I think that would be great, because I think any interrelated, crossover between the different genres and different disciplines and professions can only help the overall effort, I would think.
Yeah. What's an example of eco poetry?
An example? I mean, it's, you imagine, so translate all of those images that we just saw into, the types of poetry, but it's everything from, just being observational to basically outing, some of the things that are going on.
Got it.
Either locally or globally. And I think that like, it's interesting because I think that if you, for example, imagine personal grief, like the loss of someone, you can also imagine that we are experiencing a collective grief in relation to this. I mean, there's, I think it's very, even if we're not actively doing something about it, I think it affects us even when we're not thinking about it. And it is definitely upsetting to everyone. We had a recent discussion, Ruskin lecture with Wendell Berry, the poet, who also is a farmer, and very much an activist. So that is something also to check out, because he also talks about what has happened with that industry, and chemicals, and the poor use of water, all of those things, and the losing of labor, replacing labor with machines, and and how now people are trying to gravitate back toward organic farming. And so I think this is all interrelated. And I think if we support each other and each other's efforts, it's bound to have a really positive accumulative effect. But you're right, it takes a little bit of work, and it takes some consistency. So
you bring up an excellent point too that I wish I had actually thought of earlier, was that there's a whole very dark side to this situation that Denise, your collection really looks more on the bright side, that it's more about creativity and being whimsical and some humor, and whereas the kind of like the gut-wrenching emotion of some of it is not necessarily conveyed in your choices.
Well, I think, when it's not all, it started out that way, but I think now the motivation is because people's guts are wrenched, and now the objects that they're creating have actual relevance and actual utility, and they're serious about promoting an innovative modus operendi that is adaptable by people. And they're proving that it is, because they're starting in the middle of, with nothing, they're doing it. So, I think the pandemic is another sort of gut-wrenching thing, though, that makes us realize that this is a world we're all connected in. Everybody's connected. So that's sort of an ironic flip side to the unfortunate invisibility of this virus. But I think that we're going to feel more and more as time goes on that there is more and more reason to communicate about survival skills and survival methodologies, and I think it's going to become more important, and we're going to follow that. I'm interested. That's where I feel like we're not going to forget about the art and the beauty and all of that, but now I want to focus on real salutary change making ideas.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's
in small, so it's nice to see the larger results of that, but that we all feel that we have some semblance of agency in this matter, and that we can start to take things in our hands. I mean, we've been composting for the past year, and it's incredible what you end up with. So
exactly. I mean, all of a sudden
It's also
your garden, and you realize that composting is a miracle or something. And
yeah.
all right. Well, Gabe, did you want to bring us
Sorry,
home?
wait.
Oh, sorry.
Ruth wanted to mention
I think
something.
Ruth wanted to say something.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I had one more suggestion, which I put in the chat. For anyone interested in the environment and how it connects to what we wear, look into fiber shed, because that's the idea of wearing things that are actually made in the region that you live. They're grown in that region, and it's what used to always be. If you lived in Belgium, you wore flax. They wore linen. If you lived in Africa, you wore what was grown, made in the environment. And we think about that with food, many of us, but we think about local and sustainable and organic food, but we don't actually think about it as much with the clothing that we wear. And fiber shed is really an incredible kind of concept. And Rebecca Burgess is I think she started the one in Northern California, and Leslie Roberts is very involved in the Southern California chapter of Fiber Shed. And it again feels like a small stone to throw in a big pond, but it's that ripple effect that we're beginning to see that's making a big difference. And people are thinking about the environment, the environmental impact of their clothing and what they wear and how it's made and how it's disposed of and what happens to it. And anyway, I can't say enough about the concept. Is something that I think in the next years is going to be very, very important.
Every vote counts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you all, particularly Denise, of course, and Suzanne. This was such a splendid example of what we like to call applied Ruskin, that it's not simply exploring the 19th century or exploring Ruskin's thought in terms of his own time, but looking at these themes as they reflect on really significant hot button issues that we're dealing with. So this is the kind of thing that I think qualifies as kind of grade A applied Ruskin to issues that really are significant. I also think too that, like as Ruth was saying, certainly Wendell Berry talks about a great deal in Ruskin. While this has societal and universal and political dimensions, we also have to realize that this has dimensions. These questions that Denise's presentation raised, have ramifications for how we live, and that finally these questions need to be resolved in terms of our own lives and our own reflection on our own involvement with a consumerist and avaricious world and polity. So, These are, immensely important questions for us. Couple of things, just please visit our website for information about our March offerings. We have an important dual lecture about modern techniques in historic preservation and restoration coming up. I think this is a discussion, restoration and historic preservation, in which Ruskin and his disciple William Morris loom as large influences. So we will have a marvelous discussion on Thursday, March 11th. I think finally an important discussion with experts Norman Weiss and John Fiedler in conversation, a presentation that we have called Science, Architecture, and Ruskin's World. That's our current publicity title. The lecturers have a much longer title in mind, Shadows Cast Around the Lamp of Memory. This is a reference to Ruskin's 7 Lamps of Architecture. A perspective on Ruskin's edicts for the repair and restoration of historic buildings. Ted Bosley will be moderating this, I think, really quite important discussion with these 2 experts. Also in March 18th at 5 p.m., curators from Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas, will take us on a tour of the remarkable new exhibition, Crafting America, which celebrates the skill and individuality of craft within the broad context of American art. Suzanne Iskin will also be there, be on hand to moderate this presentation as well. For more information about Ruskin, the Ruskin Art Club membership, and our events, please visit our website. So thank you, everyone. This was a particularly significant evening, I think, for us all. And good night.
Raise hand. Okay, raise hand.
Thank you, everyone.
Lovely.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Elena.
Suzanne, thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katrina. And thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too.